Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and as you guessed tonight, it is all about James Comey and the former FBI Director's testimony before Congress. We're disposing of our regular format, so you can weigh in as well. You're going to be a part of tonight's program by calling in. Our phones, toll-free numbers open at 888-766-2428. A huge day here in American politics. Let's go to Janae Norman. She's joining us live out of Washington.
There were quite a few stunning moments during James Comey's nearly 3-hour testimony, during which he accused the Trump administration of lying and even suggested President Trump wanted special treatment in exchange for loyalty.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth?
Former FBI Director James Comey was cool, calm, and collected as he shared his side on Capitol Hill. Weighing in on his controversial firing, the administration blamed on FBI rank and file losing confidence.
Those were lies. Plain and simple. I take the president at his word that I was fired because of the Russia investigation.
Comey testified the president repeatedly asked for his loyalty. One conversation that continued to come up when Comey says Trump asked him to let go of the FBI's criminal investigation into former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Trump allegedly saying, "I hope you can see your way to letting Flynn go," a claim the president has flat out denied.
The president never, in form or substance, directed or suggested that Mr. Comey stop investigating anyone, including the president never suggested that Mr. Comey, quote, let Flynn go, close quote.
Comey admitting he'd never memorialized conversations with presidents in the past, but did so with Trump to protect himself and the FBI.
I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document.
And a stunning revelation. Comey admitting this tweet from Trump that James Comey better hope that there are no tapes of our conversations before he starts leaking to the press prompted him to orchestrate the release of his memo of the Flynn conversation through a friend.
And so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel.
The president speaking today, not directly referencing Comey, but saying he will not back down from doing what is right.
We know that the truth will prevail.
And the president's lawyer said President Trump feels completely vindicated by Comey's admission that he did tell Trump he wasn't under investigation. And the White House weighing in today saying, quote, the president isn't a liar. Live on Capitol Hill, Janae Norman, ABC News. Now back to you.
Thank you, Janae. And our phone lines, they are open, and we want you to weigh in. Be part of our program. Toll-free lines 888-766-2428. We're going to be getting to those calls a little bit later in the program. But as I said off the top, literally historic day in Washington. Watch parties everywhere here because it was he said, he said. You've heard what the president had to say. You heard what he had to say about Jim Comey. Well, today was Comey's chance to be specific as to what he believed the president said, not only to him and what it meant. Now, I also want to play some of those extended clips from the hearing today. And right out of the gate, Comey came out firing, saying the Trump administration lied and they tried to defame him and the FBI in the process. That was just the opening statement. Take a listen.
When I was appointed FBI director in 2013, I understood that I served at the pleasure of the president. Even though I was appointed to a 10-year term, which Congress created in order to underscore the importance of the FBI being outside of politics and independent, I understood that I could be fired by a president for any reason or for no reason at all. And on May the 9th, when I learned that I had been fired, for that reason, I immediately came home as a private citizen. But then the explanations, the shifting explanations, confused me and increasingly concerned me. They confused me because the president and I had had multiple conversations about my job, both before and after he took office. And he had repeatedly told me I was doing a great job and he hoped I would stay. And I had repeatedly assured him that I did intend to stay and serve out the remaining 6 years of my term. He told me repeatedly that he had talked to lots of people about me, including our current Attorney General, and had learned that I was doing a great job and that I was extremely well liked by the FBI workforce. So it confused me when I saw on television the president saying that he actually fired me because of the Russia investigation, and learned again from the media that he was telling privately other parties that my firing had relieved great pressure on the Russia investigation. I was also confused by the initial explanation that was offered publicly that I was fired because of the decisions I had made during the election year. That didn't make sense to me for a whole bunch of reasons, including the time and all the water that had gone under the bridge since those hard decisions had to be made. That didn't make any sense to me. And although the law required no reason at all to fire an FBI director, the administration then chose to defame me and, more importantly, the FBI by saying that the organization was in disarray, that it was poorly led, that the workforce had lost confidence in its leader. Those were lies, plain and simple. And I am so sorry that the FBI workforce had to hear them, and I'm so sorry that the American people were told them.
So with that, the questioning began, and the chair of the committee, Republican Richard Burr of North Carolina, he got right to the point.
Do you have any doubt that Russia attempted to interfere in the 2016 elections?
None.
Do you have any doubt that the Russian government was behind the intrusions in the DNC and the DCCC systems and the subsequent leaks of that information?
No, no doubt.
Do you have any doubt that the Russian government was behind the cyber intrusion into state voter files?
No.
Do you have any doubt that officials of the Russian government were fully aware of these activities?
No doubt.
Are you confident that no votes cast in the 2016 presidential election were altered?
I'm confident. By the time when I left as director, I'd seen no indication of that whatsoever.
Director Comey, did the president at any time ask you to stop the FBI investigation into Russian involvement in the 2016 U.S. elections?
Not to my understanding, no.
Did any individual working for this administration, including the Justice Department, ask you to stop the Russian investigation?
No.
Director, when the president requested that you, and I quote, let Flynn go, General Flynn had an unreported contact with the Russians, which is an offense. And if press accounts are right, there might have been discrepancies between facts and his FBI testimony. In your estimation, was General Flynn at that time in serious legal jeopardy? And in addition to that, do you sense that the president was trying to obstruct justice or just seek for a way for Mike Flynn to save face, given he had already been fired?
Well, General Flynn at that point in time was in legal jeopardy. There was an open FBI criminal investigation of his statements in connection with the Russian contacts and the contacts themselves. And so that was my assessment at the time. I don't think it's for me to say whether the conversation I had with the president was an effort to obstruct. I took it as a very disturbing thing, very concerning, but that's a conclusion I'm sure the special counsel will work towards to try and understand what the intention was there and whether that's an offense.
Then the vice chair, Mark Warner, got to question Comey, and the Virginia Democrat, he asked him why he wrote the now famous memo about his January 6th meeting at Trump Tower with the then president-elect. Here it is.
What was it about that meeting that led you to determine that you needed to start putting down a written record?
A combination of things. I think the circumstances, the subject matter, and the person I was interacting with. Circumstances first, I was alone with the President of the United States, or the President-elect, soon to be President. The subject matter, I was talking about matters that touch on the FBI's core responsibility and that relate to the President-elect personally. And then the nature of the person. I was honestly concerned that he might lie about the nature of our meeting, and so I thought it really important to document. That combination of things I'd never experienced before, but it led me to believe I got to write it down, and I got to write it down in a very detailed way.
I think that's a very important statement you just made. And my understanding is that then, again, unlike your dealings with presidents of either parties in your past experience, in every subsequent meeting or conversation with this president, you created a written record. Did you feel that you needed to create this written record of these memos because they might need to be relied on at some future date?
Sure. I created records after conversations, and I think I did it after each of our 9 conversations. If I didn't, I did it for nearly all of them, especially the ones that were substantive. I knew that there might come a day when I would need a record of what had happened, not just to defend myself, but to defend the FBI and our integrity as an institution and the independence of our investigative function. That's what made this so difficult, is it was a combination of circumstances, subject matter, and the particular person.
And so in all your experience, this was the only president that you felt like in every meeting you needed to document, because at some point, using your words, he might put out a non-truthful representation of that meeting. Now,
that's right, Senator. And I, as I said in my written testimony, as FBI director, I interacted with President Obama, and I spoke only twice in 3 years and didn't document it. When I was Deputy Attorney General, I had one one-on-one meeting with President Bush about a very important and difficult national security matter. I didn't write a memo documenting that conversation either. Sent a quick email to my staff to let them know there was something going on. But I didn't feel with President Bush the need to document it in that way. Again, because the combination of those factors just wasn't present with either President Bush or President Obama.
Now, shortly after the hearing concluded, President Trump's personal attorney responded. Here's part of it.
Mr. Comey's testimony also makes clear that the president never sought to impede the investigation into attempted Russian interference in the 2016 election. And in fact, according to Mr. Comey, the president told Mr. Comey, quote, "It would be good to find out," close quote, in that investigation if there was, quote, "some satellite associates of his who did something wrong," close quote. It is overwhelmingly clear that there have been and continue to be those in government who are actively attempting to undermine this administration with selective and illegal leaks of classified information and privileged communications. Mr. Comey has now admitted that he is one of these leakers. Today, Mr. Comey admitted that he unilaterally and surreptitiously made unauthorized disclosures to the press of privileged communications with the president.
And that House Speaker Paul Ryan commenting on the Comey testimony today.
President's new at this. He's new to government. And so he probably wasn't steeped in the long-running protocols that establish the relationships between DOJ, FBI, and White Houses. He's just new to this. And so I think it's what I got out of that testimony is we now know why he was so frustrated when the FBI director told him 3 times there's no investigation of him, yet that speculation was allowed to continue. So obviously we know now why he was frustrated. Yeah, well, I think there's going to be a he said thing on this, and I don't have any comment on it.
I want you to try that excuse next time you're accused of obstruction of justice. I'm just new to the job, and I didn't know any better. Good luck with that one. All right, joining us now, Congressman Joe Crowley from New York. He's chair of the Democratic caucus. And your reaction to what you heard today, and people certainly have given their opinions. A lot of people said, in short, that when Comey said he took it as a directive from the president to basically make it go away with General Flynn, that reached the threshold to at least begin the conversation of obstruction of justice. What was your takeaway?
Well, firstly, just in comment to what my friend Paul Ryan just said, that's absolutely ludicrous. The notion or idea that he's new to this. I think the president knows exactly what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was asking of then Director Comey. He was asking him to set aside this investigation. It was uncomfortable for him. It was making his life difficult, and so to push this off as some type of neophytism, I think is wrong. There's no double standard here. There can't be a standard for you and I and a different standard for the president. It just doesn't work that way. You run for office. It's the big leagues. This is what you wanted, and that's how you're going to react, or how you're going to conduct yourself. I think that the American people are going to reject that.
Your sense here, is Washington paralyzed now? I mean, I know in the House that was trying to repeal Dodd-Frank, health care reportedly is back on the agenda. This was supposedly Infrastructure Week. Is anything going to get done in this environment where you don't know when the next shoe is going to drop? And now, clearly, Mueller has more than enough to keep himself busy here in this investigation.
On its face, it looks as though that this is somewhat paralyzing. But I think some here in Washington like the distraction of the president under duress or having this action over here. While over here, it's been suggested that maybe Mitch McConnell is using this opportunity to try to ram through a health care bill in the Senate without much attention from the American people. I don't think that's going to work. I think we're all paying attention to what he's doing, what they're doing. But there's no question that the White House seems to really have collapsed around the president right now. And I think we see that happening in terms of the 60-plus people who have been appointed to the attack team against Comey at this point. So I think the revelation that really came out of today's testimony, though, is just how much duress Comey felt he was under, how much the president really was trying to coerce him into agreeing to set aside the investigation into Michael Flynn. And I think that became even more and more apparent in terms of his presentation today.
The numbers, and we'll get into them, Congressman, on the president for polls are overwhelmingly bad, from approval rating to why he's done what he's done here, and the level of credibility it has with the American public. My question is, when the C-SPAN cameras are off and the guys aren't in front of the cameras with the red lights on with the interviews, what are Republican colleagues saying to you? Are they as slack-jawed as maybe the rest of us that think what we're talking about? We're talking about covering for Russia or possibly even coordinating with Russia to mess with our election, and this is including everybody who's now either had to be recused, from the Attorney General to members of the administration, certainly part of the campaign, possibly the president. I mean, you couldn't make this up if you tried. Do Republican colleagues, are they as worried as Democrats where this all goes, or is everybody going in their corners?
I think they have to be worried about this. I think there's more silence right now, silent concern, a lot of eyes rolling. I do think what's been missed here, Rich, and you're kind of touching upon it now, is that through all of the meetings that the president had with Comey, it was all about, am I being investigated? Can you please just tell the American people that I'm not a subject of investigation? It's all about the president. And not one word of criticism of Putin or of the Russian government in their attack upon the United States, the cyber attack upon what is the most sacred thing about our country, is our electoral process. That to me is stunning. And that's really been clear in terms of the testimony of Mr. Comey, that not once did the president ever criticize the fact that Russia had made this attack upon our country.
Last thing, Congressman, and I know you're part of leadership for the Democrats, but try as best you can to not even approach this from being a Democrat, but I've been trying every night to say, I don't care what political party you're with, what your political affiliations or beliefs are. This has been really bad for America the last 140 days. It's harmed us internationally. It's harmed us for people who trust us. It's harmed us in terms of our belief in government, belief in media, belief in so many different things. It's not who we are. Maybe you can do a better job than me, but I don't care who you voted for. This is really bad what's going on.
Well, I agree with you. From a political and non-political position, obviously, it's hard to separate, obviously, as an elected member of Congress from the Democratic Party and as the chair of the caucus. But I do think from time to time there are issues that we are confronted with that transcend politics and transcend party. I think this is one of them. I think for the betterment of the country, we need to have a full vetting. That's why I believe not only the appointment of a special counsel, but we really need to have a full vetting of what Russia attempted to do, what they were successful at, what they failed at, what they've learned from their attack, and what their intentions are in the future, and how can we prevent that from happening, and how can we respond to them. That has to be done through an independent commission. Democrats, Republicans, and all parties coming together to really delve into this and find out exactly just what happened. Not about prosecuting, that's for a special prosecutor, but for the American people to fully understand just what happened and how damaging it was.
Congressman, thank you. Got a lot of work ahead of you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Rich.
All right, with that, we want to hear from you. You see the toll-free number there on your screen. We're opening them up right now. I want to get your reaction to what you heard today from Jim Comey, from the Trump side, where this goes from here. Do you think we've heard enough that in your eyes, there's at least grounds to start looking at obstruction of justice? Who are the winners, the losers from today? Many questions. We come back and want to start getting some of your answers.